And your favorite Black single mom here, the millennial introvert Samantha. And I have a great story to go over today that I think everyone would be interested in. So let's just jump right into it. It's coming from slate.com and was published March 2024. So it says, the parents in my classroom, how my students stay tethered via FaceTime and email to their homes. The reason I wanted to go over this story was because I know that a lot of people are always trying to talk about children, just basically using too much technology or being too, I guess, like connected to their devices, whether it's their phone or their tablet. But I always like to remind people that I'm an 80s child, and I know even people who grew up in maybe the 60s or the 70s say they were growing up on the TV. So they pretty much watched a lot of TV, hence the term couch potato. A lot of us were latchkey kids, which meant that we came home on our own and our parents were not there yet, and we had to feed ourselves, watch TV, get our homework done, everything until our parents came home. So I know, like, as far as in my generation, I just read an article or went over an article with you all about how it is currently like the highest number of parents dropping their children off, like in American history, and dropping them off to school and picking them up. So the latchkey kid narrative is like gone. You don't really hear it as much anymore. Most parents, I believe that, if they're picking up, dropping off their child, they're coming home with them, they're giving them their snacks, and they're helping them with their homework. So parents are a lot more involved overall than I remember my parents being with me. And we did watch a lot of TV on top of that. So I am definitely someone who pushes back when people complain about children having their tablets or their smartphones. And the only thing that I would tell parents or, like recommend as a veteran mom of 5, with 2, one is an adult, one is almost an adult. And then I have my 8-year-old and my 5-year-old twins. I would just say just censor it, just lock it down so that your children cannot access things that would not be age appropriate. Like if you're like, say like they're going to social media, I don't believe in my children having social media accounts until they're like teenagers. I don't see why you would need one before like the age of 15 or even 16. And I don't see why a child would need a smartphone. Even if you have to get in touch with your child, I would say just get them a regular phone, like a little regular cell phone with just mom, dad, grandma, auntie, the most important people that they would need to call if they needed help, for instance. Or people they just like to call to talk to like grandma, grandpa. Um, and those like the only numbers that need to be programmed into that phone. And, you can try to find a way so that they can't call out to random people or handle um, calls that they don't recognize that aren't programmed. You can set up your phone so that only calls that that is like in the contact list can call that phone. So that's mainly my recommendation would be just lock it down, lock it down, lock it down. And back in the day, I feel like the government did a better job of censoring television, the radio, things of that nature to keep kids safe from hearing things that were um, too much of adult content for children. But nowadays, I feel like parents just have like this huge um, job ahead of us, like when it comes to like having to fight the internet, all the devices, like having to do all these things to keep our children safe. And then on top of that, the government doesn't no longer really censors anything. Like there's really just some of whatever on TV, and we all know there's what they play some of whatever on the radio. And so my children do not listen to the radio. We listen to Bloomberg radio if we listen to the radio, or I used to listen to gospel music. And if we don't listen to those two things, then we are listening to mommy's 80s and 90s playlist, like my very outdated playlist that I've put together because I really do not listen to mainstream music from nowadays. I just don't think it's really that great, so I just don't listen to it, or I think it's just too grotesque or too offensive, etc. Just not age appropriate for my children. So, um, but yeah, so I definitely think like parents are doing a great job, considering all the obstacles and threats and dangers out there that we have coming for our children, in addition to the children having the same dangers that we had back then, that people act like, oh, they didn't exist. It's like, no, you just didn't know about them. Like, we're just more aware now because of technology. So the same stranger danger, the creepy, weird people out there that abduct kids and do weird things, like all of that existed then, it exists now. And then on top of that, we also have our children having, computers and smartphones and tablets and basically just the internet. So now they have access, and these predators have access to them from all over the world. So it's like that is something else that parents have to protect our children from. Then on top of that, we have a more lax, basically a government that's failing their citizens and allowing so many things that are uncensored to be available to our children. Like, let me give you an example. My kids are actually, their school, they have these laptops that the schools give them, which I think that's fine. I love that they're like, promoting the use of technology, because I actually think America is very behind when it comes to how to use technology to our advantage to be like a world power, like be a stronger country overall. Technology is extremely powerful and could be used in so much of a better way than how America chooses to use it. And it starts really at the school level, because everything starts with the children. They are the future. So at the school level, children should learn and be very comfortable with technology, with computers, devices. That's why I don't really ever really take it too seriously when people talk about tablets or smartphones or whatever. I'm like, that is the future, is technology. So I don't mind that they're using technology. But like I just said, as far as like keeping children safe, my children's laptops are actually completely open. And even with me trying to block access to certain sites like YouTube with an app that was on the laptop, my 5-year-old figured out how to turn that off so he could get back onto YouTube. So it's like, okay, so on one end is very impressive, because I have an IT. I was an IT professional for 20 years, and then my degrees are in IT, information technology. So in one field, in one aspect of it, or one facet of the situation, I'm proud of him, because I'm like, wow, my children are really smart, and they super are. Kids are so smart. We don't give them enough credit. I think a lot of people treat kids like they're dumb, like they don't know anything, and a lot of times kids probably know more than the adults, but they're so smart. And so on one aspect, I'm like, wow, like my son's super smart. Then the other aspect, I'm like, mad, like, why is the school making this so difficult for parents? Because they actually had the nerve, their teachers actually had the nerve to contact me and tell me like, oh, your son just wants to get online and play games and watch TV, whatever. And I'm looking at them like, well, why is he even able to do that? As an IT professional who was trained by the military, I know there's a lot of programs and apps and all kinds of things out there to basically render things completely just restricted on the network, so that no one can access certain websites, certain apps. You could even go as far as drilling in like certain words. So if just someone types in a certain word in Google, it would just be like restricted access. Like they literally cannot even see it. Um, and the schools just aren't, because we don't take technology seriously in America and we don't use it to our benefit. The schools are very uneducated when it comes to technology. So I don't even know if they know how to manage these systems that they're giving our kids so that our children can be safe. And then on top of that, you're talking to parents, because everyone loves to blame the parents. Even though we don't work for the school, we're not giving our children these laptops. We're not requiring our children to have these laptops. The schools actually require them to have them because it makes their job easier. So, you know, they blame parents when our children are now wanting to play video games or whatever. And I'm like, well, he's 5. I mean, what 5-year-old, what kid doesn't love video games? Like, you have grown people playing video games. So I'm like, what are you talking about? The video gaming industry is like $1 billion industry. I mean, it's extremely wildly popular with people of all ages, all the way up way into adulthood. Like, grown men and women are complete gamers, which is nothing wrong with that. But, my point is, this is a 5-year-old. So if he can get to the fun stuff, of course he's going to be on there. And he should have never had access to it because I did not introduce that to him. He did not ever see that from my end. He did have it, like we did have access to it, like on the TV, but I censored it so that they couldn't get to it anymore. And so now they're watching their laptops and getting to some of the programs they like to watch that I really would rather them not be watching. So it's like a tug of war back and forth trying to fight. And I finally just got fed up and wrote the principal. I was just like, what is going on? Why? Who is allowing my son to get on these websites that I do not approve of? And this is before I knew my 5-year-old had the capability to unblock his his site that I had blocked. So that's been just something I'm going to bring up because a lot of people blame parents for just a lot of things that children are knowing, like certain music, certain dance moves, just certain things that the school is actually teaching them, or they're responsible for why our children are able to even like discover that stuff that we don't even do that at home at all. Like, we do not listen to certain music, don't watch certain programs. So if my children know certain things, it's usually because of school or something the school has given them. So let's go ahead and get into this article. So it says, recently one of my 9th grade English students told me her parents rewarded her for making the honor roll by allowing her to text them during class. I actually think that's a weird reward. I would not recommend. Like, why would you reward? Like, why would you promote your child texting during class? I don't think people are very smart. Like, adults are not very smart in so many ways. And it's just funny to me because I feel like these same adults will be expecting children to be like acting like adults, but they're not even that smart. That's not very smart. Like, why would you want your child to be having the ability to do that? They're most likely, because you give kids an inch, they go a mile. So they're going to most likely be like, oh, now I'm not even paying attention, or I'm kind of being like disruptive to the class because I'm sitting here texting while my teacher's talking or whatever. It's just not a good look. So let's continue. So they said they like to know what I'm doing in the classroom as it's happening, she said. That's a bit much. So they said, we have a cell phone policy. I reminded her. I know, she said, but you can always break it to message your parents. What? Okay. That doesn't make sense. Unless it's like an emergency. I don't see why you need to be texting me during school. I'm actually for teachers taking the phones during class time, like time they walk in and drop the phone into a little basket. Like, I don't know why teachers aren't doing that. I don't know if, I'm pretty sure there's some arbitrary rule out there. There are so many rules and regulations that are so full of crap that are out there, like, oh, you can't take the kids' phones, that's child abuse, or some stupid mess like that. Like, no, just snatch that thing. They don't need it while they're sitting right there in the classroom. That's stupid. So it says, my student was partly right. Emergencies happen. Parents want access to their kids, but this wasn't an emergency. When my dad texts and asks me how I am, another 9th grader said, he gets worried if I don't message back immediately. So that's weird. And I'm going to be off of my commentary to this article. I would say, I get some of the anxiety that parents would have because of like these school shootings that we were having quite a bit, like maybe a few years ago or something. Seems like they're not happening as often now, or maybe they're just not reporting them as much anymore. That's one thing that's weird about the media. They can make something seem like such a big deal one minute, and the next minute it's like, oh, it's not even happening. But then it might still be happening. We're just not hearing about it. But I really don't think it's happening because a lot of times people nowadays are now the regular citizens are now leading what makes it to the mainstream media because of what we find to be of interest, and us just paying so much attention to something that it basically forces the news outlets to discuss whatever we're talking about, such as like the Who the F Did I Marry series. So I can see parents being a little bit paranoid depending on, like, let's look at a case by case basis, or like worrying about school shootings or something like that happening. If your child's being bullied or something, maybe you want to be able to check in with them throughout the day. But I feel like if it's a situation like that where it's something that a parent really has a real anxiety over, then maybe that's something that needs to be addressed at the school itself. One, because school should be safe. You should feel that your child's safe when you drop them off at school each day. And if you don't feel that way, that's a problem. And it's time for a conversation with the principal and whomever, teachers, parents, whoever's involved with why you're feeling like you're concerned about your child's safety in their school. And I know for my children, like for instance, they lock the doors. So they're very extra about letting people in to the school, which I actually am okay with that because of the school shootings. Um, so there's like different things they have in place to keep the children safe. And so I don't feel like, oh, I need to be, like it's like if there's a problem that arises where I am worried that my child's not safe in the school for some reason, I will be in that school in person and I'm going to be observing the situation in person. I will be having meetings. There's going to be a lot going on with me involved in it. And it's not just going to be text me, unless you're like, once the problem has been addressed, you might want to check in with your child periodically, just to say, just checking in with you to see like how did everything pan out after we talked to your teacher together or whatever. But I feel like for the majority of the time, not necessary. It's a bit much to expect children to be like texting parents all day and checking in with them. It's just weird. Um, I just can't think of, like, there's so many things, so many nuances to that. To me, it tells me the school's not safe. Like, if you have to check in with your child because you're not there, like, what is the school doing? The school is failing your child if you feel like they're not safe there, whether they're leaving the school, are they skipping school? Like, I just don't understand. Um, I can't think of a reason why that would be really needed. And if it is needed, then there's a bigger problem here at play that we need to be addressing. Um, so to me, it sounds like from what she's saying, she's like, my mom. So this is, hold on one second. Like the dad, because that person, the dad gets worried. I'm like, gets worried about what? Because I mean, is there a health issue here? Like, what exactly is going on here? So that would definitely be like a case by case basis. But I think majority of the time, it's not necessary. It would not be necessary for you to be having all this over access to your kid like throughout the day, especially as they get older and they're even more self-sufficient. It's like, what am I doing? Why am I checking in with my teenager or my tween? Like, why am I checking with this person all day long? Like, they're big, they're going to be okay. And then this other person said, her friend said my mom expects to text each class period so she knows what I'm doing. And I'm starting to wonder, like, if children are making excuses just so they can do some texting. Have the teachers actually looked at their phones to see, are they texting their parents or their boyfriends or girlfriends? So so the article goes on to say these examples are not exceptions; they happen every day. I just think that's strange. That is weird because I definitely just had like a huge. We all know I said I was still in my kids' school. I had like a huge issue with my kids' school, and I never would think I need to give them a phone and have them text me all day. Like, I just don't see what that does. Like, I don't understand a time of a reason why I would say this is what I need to be doing is having them text me a lot of times a day. Like, it's just, and I have 5 boys. So I can't think like right now, like what would be a reason where I would say, oh, you need to text me after every class period. Why? So let me continue. So I teach at Evanston Township High School in Evanston, Illinois, a large, highly ranked suburban high school that serves a diverse student population. As of the latest data from the National Center for Education Statistics, which is from 2020, 76.9% of American public schools have cell phone policies. That includes ours. At my school, phones are to be put away before students enter the classroom. So, a University of Michigan CS Mott Children's Hospital poll reported that the number one concern for parents in 2023 was excessive screen time. Yet many expect constant contact with their kids during class. So yeah, that's definitely a contradiction. How are you worried about excessive screen time, but you want to be like in touch with your child like so much throughout the day? That is them having to look at their screens, in case you didn't realize, but more than they need to. Even if they're aware of school cell phone policies, and school officials point to parents as the main obstacle to banning phones in schools. If these two facts seem incompatible to you, you're not alone. We teachers are right there with you. Some parents of kids in my class watch the screens of their kids' school-issued Chromebooks remotely when they're in class. My mom wants to know I'm not playing video games. This is unbelievable. Why does the child have access to video games on a school-issued Chromebook? And why is the mom watching like from afar? It's just like this cannot be life. So this person is like literally saying her mom or his mom, while they're in class, the parent is basically virtually looking over their shoulder to me. That is weird. Oh my goodness. I told you all I just got a complaint from my kids' teachers, like them wanting to play video games and watch cartoons and I'm just like, whose fault is that? You're the adult here. Like take some take some control of your situation, this environment that is the school, and put some, measures in place so that children cannot access these things. It's kind of like people saying like, oh, your child is like if people say, oh, your child's fat, and then parents are like, well, they just whatever, and they'll like try to act like it's it can't be helped, but it's like you're the one that purchased all the junk food. Or if people act like, oh, I can't take my child won't stop drinking from their bottle. And it's like, you're the one that keeps giving them a bottle. Like you literally can take it and give them a sippy cup. And most children are going to just deal with it, like whether they like it or not, because they're hungry and they need to eat still. And they're just going to have to get over it and start using their sippy cup instead of a bottle. And I think that's what a lot of parents did. They just took one and switched it with the other and kept it moving. And yeah, this is a bit overkill. I feel like that's definitely helicopter parenting, and I feel like if as a parent you're doing that, it's because the school has dropped the ball somewhere. Like, why do I have to be virtually making sure my child's not on the video games on their Chromebook? Because why are the games even there to begin with? So many parents are so tightly tethered to their kids. It's as though they're sitting in our classrooms with us. And it's not only through screens. Some of them contact us about schoolwork so their kid doesn't have to. Why would the child contact them about the school about schoolwork? I can't think of a reason. That is odd. This is like strange to me. Things are very different nowadays. I don't like why would the student contact the teacher? When would that be happening? The parents usually would call the teachers and the school. So that part is weird as well. So a student told me he saw no reason to talk to me about an assignment he was struggling with because I know my mom is going to email you about it for me. What's wrong with that? They want us to advocate for our kids until they become adults. Like I don't see the big issue with that. Me personally, like I would prefer to be talking to the teacher because I'd also want to know what is going on with my child. Uh, Making the grade they made so we can get to the bottom of it and resolve the issue by getting a tutor or whatever my child needs. So they go on to say, I think what's not getting across to parents is that school isn't a live stream and it's for students, not their parents. Okay, so this is not funny. I actually was in a meeting with other parents, and this one parent who was a former teacher said that because I was talking about how I feel like we're the customers, where's the customer service? And she said that the schools, she's like, school teachers feel like the students are their customers, not the parents. And she's like, I know that's not right, but that's how they are. And I'm like, yeah, it's not right. Because the students are not paying the tax. They're not paying the tax dollars. They're not paying to live wherever you're living, so so that child can be in that particular school. The customer is the person who spends the money. So if you're not spending money anywhere because you don't have any money, how are you the customer? Make it make sense. My child is your customer through proxy of me. Like if there were no me, my child wouldn't even be sitting in this seat right now. Like that, it just wouldn't be happening. So that's weird that the schools are trying to override or circumvent the parent, like just kind of go over our head, like just go over us, like we don't exist. And that could explain why schools and parents don't have great relationships across the United States. And it could explain why our children are failing in schools because to me, you cannot produce a lot of great kids graduating from high school and heading off to college when the entire 13 years, parents and teachers were at odds with each other. We need to be working as a team. It's not us against them. It should just be we're doing this for the benefit of these children so that they can go on to be successful in the world. And that benefits everyone. But as far as like a classroom being live streamed, the only reason I would think that parents are doing that is because they don't trust the teachers. And I know that was also an incident they said occurred in my child's school, my kid's school, where I was telling you all I was dealing with school issues with my boys. And they were saying that was one of the problems. A parent came in and was actually trying to record. She bust out her camera and was like trying to record the teacher, her phone, with the camera, to try to record the teacher interacting with the class. And I guess she was trying to catch her in the moment. And I can't say I blame her because usually if you're in the classroom as a parent, it's because something's wrong here. Like, why am I here if things are going great? So usually you're there because something has gone wrong and you are going to want evidence, just like you would if you were dealing with the police or anybody else. And teachers like to pretend that they're not public servants, but they are, just like any other government employee, which all the government employees seem to forget that they're serving the American public. They just all think that they're doing us a favor. They're not getting paid to be sitting in those seats. And they're just like, who are you? I'm just doing what I want, even though you put me here and you're paying my salary. And they just try to do whatever they want. And parents are not having it, especially when it involves our children. So this is exactly what I've been going through. It just feels like a tug of war from the schools to the parents, and the children are caught in the middle. And it's like both sides are trying to like say, I have power over this child. I have the power over this child. And at the end of the day, the parents are going to win. And the American public as a whole is going to lose because you just cannot be successful with a dysfunctional society. It's pretty much like a dysfunctional parenting unit that is trying to raise a child. It's like each side does not agree. They're not getting along. They don't trust each other. And the child is going to be the one that's going to grow up in the middle of this chaos and go on to shoot up schools or just be a complete carjackings nightmare or whatever they're doing with themselves that's like terrorizing communities. Because what else have they seen for the last 13 years is adults fighting, not getting along. And it's just a real problem. And I feel like it is a power struggle that shouldn't be happening. Is really just, to me, when I start each school year, I see my children as teachers as a team player. Like we are all teammates meeting for the first time, and we are going to play the heck out of this game and try to win. And the winning is a child learning everything they need to learn and growing up to be an upstanding, polite, intelligent individual. And it's not to be, oh, it's me against you. I just don't see the benefit of that. I never have. I don't understand. But I just feel like etiquette, morals, values, all that is like gone. It went somewhere after like the 70s or 80s. I don't know. It's just gone out the window, never to come back. And it just gets worse and worse every year. It seems like, I mean, the pandemic, I was really surprised how people came out of it and we're just so angry. And I'm just like, aren't you happy that we all, like the ones who made it, we made it. We should be grateful that we're alive. And instead, we're fighting on airplanes and fighting in stores and shooting people because we don't want to put on a mask. It's like, really? Like, what's happening? I don't know. I'm in the twilight zone. No. So parents, it seem like they're not trusting the teachers is what's really going on here. And that's why they're wanting to live stream their kids in school because they don't trust the teachers and they probably don't trust the other students either because I know bullying is also a real problem in American schools. So they're saying, and it's forced, so they're saying the incessant monitoring is disrupting the learning environment and violating the sacred space of the classroom. I didn't know the classroom was a sacred space. It's public. So I feel like anyone should be able to walk into your classroom and it should be like, I'm just teaching the kids. Like, what's so sacred about it? I don't understand that. And I think that's the problem. It's like we're trying to make it this secret society that it shouldn't be. It's a public school. You're teaching people of the public who are going to go on to work for the American public. Like, I don't understand what's the big secret here. And that's the part, to me, it's part of the problem is that they are being so secretive and they are teaching our children a lot of times things we don't want them to be learning as parents. And that's the problem is, and the teachers are crying us a river, frankly, because they don't want parents to know what they're teaching our children or want us to know what they're saying to our children or allowing to happen to our children from other children. And they're not liking that parents are having this overextended access to what is really going on. I even, had gotten so desperate. I was thinking about putting a small recorder in my son's book bag because I just did not trust how the teachers were treating him when I'm not around. And because some of the things they would say when I was around was highly disturbing to me and even other staff members. So I thought about it. I do record meetings. I do certain things. So it's really, and we've had tons of meetings and we've established, I mean, it's really just a lack of trust between parents and the school system. And that's a real problem. That's a real problem. It's just like the lack of trust between communities and the police force. It's just a problem. Why? And just the American public as a whole and the government. Why don't we trust people who are supposed to be serving us? It's a problem. So let me continue. So certain parents have already quite publicly insinuated themselves deeply into schools, leading to a push for book bans in 33 states, closing libraries, and limiting classroom discussions on race, gender, and sexuality. Parental classroom surveillance through student phones and laptops, which is something both liberal and conservative parents may do, is a less discussed manifestation of this trend. And I feel like part of that is because of parents trying to control what's being taught in the classroom or trying to just be more aware of what their child's learning or not learning. So parental classroom surveillance through students' phones and laptops, that is too funny. I shouldn't be funny. Oh, not the laptops too, like the whole big laptop, like watching the teacher, but it's too funny. So they said, which is something both. So this is a manifestation of this trend that I guess they're saying people aren't really discussing from both liberal and conservative parents, but it can have a similar effect, preventing students from forming critical thoughts of their own and inhibiting their growth. Of course, one reason parents are surveilling their children so much is because they're worried about their mental health. In addition to screen time, other top parent concerns include anxiety, I just said this already, depression, and bullying. And I said the bullying part already. According to a 2022 Pew Research study. So that's how can you blame parents if they have those concerns? You can't be with your child. It used to be you dropped them off at school and you just hope for the best. But now you have phones and technology. So why wouldn't you use that to your advantage as a parent? Like just like having a nanny cam or any other surveillance camera of your home, external and internal. When you're not there, you can monitor it. So why wouldn't a parent take advantage of that for their own child, which is like obviously usually almost should be always our most prized creation ever in life. So not surprising that parents would take that take that technology and use it to the full advantage to really just try to keep their children safe and be able to monitor them. I remember, like, even I always used to think, like, even with daycares, that they should have, some of them, I think some of them do, but they should have surveillance systems where parents can just log in, like only the parents, people who pay whatever, should get this login. They should change it every so many whatever, so random people can't be looking at it. But parents should be able to just log in and kind of like just like keep an look, see how their child's doing throughout the day, because I don't think people really understand or just don't care, like, how hard it is to hand your child off to essentially a bunch of strangers and just not worry about it. It's like, yeah, right. And especially when you hear these stories coming out of, daycare providers abusing children or teachers molesting kids. Like, you just hear these horror stories coming out. Of course, you wish you could monitor these things. And I know, like, for instance, my son's school in Europe, in Belgium, and this was the only school I think that was like this that I can remember. But you actually could walk in and view a little TV that they had pointed towards, like, the public, like the parents that came in, and you could see your child in their classroom before you actually went into the classroom. And I remember there used to be things that allowed that, where parents could kind of like look in the window and watch over their child, without necessarily interrupting the class or even coming into the classroom. You could just observe your child and how they're doing in their learning environment. And I feel like some of that needs to come back, because parents worrying about their children is never going to go anywhere. That's never going to go away. And schools need to foster trust with parents so that we're not feeling like, now I need to ramp it up even more because they're trying to keep me away from being able to access my child. And parents are scared. There's a lot going on around the schools. Like they said, there's the critical race theory, there's the transgender wars that's happening. There's the school shootings, as I mentioned, the bullying. There's just like a lot. It's just like ground zero for like all these plethora of American problems that are occurring, and so many of them are rooted and starting in the school system, because the children, like I said, are the future. So many people are trying to like have control over what children learn and what goes into children and how to influence the children, because they know that's going to benefit them as once the children become adults. And any parent that's intelligent is aware of this, and so we're pushing back and saying, no, I'm going to be the one that influences my child. When I send my child to school, I just send them to school to learn what the teachers went to school to teach is math, science, social studies. Don't add in extra things. Don't take away things. Don't lie to them. And of course, I don't trust anyone to do my job better than me. And so I do teach my children. I homeschool all my sons, even when they're in public school. When they come home, we do like an hour of homeschool at home. And that's pretty much like when I'm teaching them things that I feel like they need to know, because I'm their mother and I'm their first teacher. And that's what I'm going to do. So let me continue. So, of course, one reason parents are, so we already went over that part. Yes, this part I was talking about. They said parents are also concerned about school shootings. So that would be one reason why I would be very, just very, more like careful about like taking the cell phones, but possibly just putting them in a place where kids can have access to them if they need to get to them because of the school shooting. So that's what I was saying, like just have a basket, collect phones, leave it at the front of the classroom or near the teacher's desk or whatever, so that if they have to run and get their phone because they go into lockdown mode. And I know they do these drills now, which is sad that we have to do them, but my children's schools will send out notices saying they're having to do these lockdown drills to practice for such an event that you pray will never happen. But if it were to happen, children can run and get their phone. Like, you don't want to put it in a place that's so inaccessible, so difficult to get to, that in an emergency they can't get it, to inform their parents of like what's going on inside the school if something like that were to happen. But of course, that should be not that common to occur. So, on a day-to-day basis, you really just want that phone to not be interrupting learning time, unless it is like some type of special um, circumstance, like say like your child's being bullied, or like me, I had some concerns. My children were having like they were saying they were having behavioral issues, which I thought were strange, and I wanted to know what was causing this. And then my children are 5; they're not really able to explain to me what's happening sometimes. So if you have like some type of extenuating circumstance that makes sense, then yes, you probably should allow the child to check in with their parents on their phone, like periodically throughout the day, instead of, but otherwise, if there's nothing really going on, it's like, let's just put the phones away and focus on school and class. And you can have the phone in between class or lunchtime or recess or whatever. I actually think kids older don't get recess. I forget, like, kids after elementary school don't get recess, which is kind of crazy. So that group of parents might be interested to hear that security experts find the ideal of kids using their personal cell phones during an active shooter incident to be quite concerning. I don't know why that would be concerning, but anyways. So educators are worried too. An EdWeek Research Center poll revealed that 88% of us see a deterioration in students' classroom behavior, their ability to focus, their executive skills, their heightened anxiety and depression, and an escalation in violent behavior when they have increased screen time. And that would, to me, would come more from just like not really protecting or preventing your child from getting to certain programs, so that they, like, for instance, like social media, just too young. You have to be careful about allowing your child to get into social media. And part of it is the depression. Kids are young, they're looking at other people's lives and they're thinking like that it's real, and they want that life too. And so now they're feeling sorry for themselves because they can't be in the Alps or skiing or in the Bahamas on the beach or whatever, like other people. And so that would be another reason why I would be very careful about my child having a social media account at such a young age, so they won't be, over internalizing something that's not even real. So parents might mean well, but the surveillance is hurting kids. School is supposed to be a place where students get distance, learn to be away from home as they grow and figure out whom they are becoming. It's funny because I don't feel like that's the case. I feel like schools are always asking my kids' school is always asking us to volunteer. They want all this help. They're always calling if our children are acting up in school. They want us to save the day and come in and help manage their classrooms. They want us to send money or send supplies to them. It's like constant unpaid, unmitigated labor. Like they're just always like, we need you to be here. We need you to be here. We're having a fundraiser. We're doing this. We're doing that. We're having something else. It's like you live at the school. And then even after school, it's meetings and more meetings, PTA meetings and board meetings and this meeting and that meeting, parent meetings. It's a lot. And parent teacher conferences. Oh, Lord, it's a lot. So for them to be like, oh, this is a chance for kids to be away, it's like, that's interesting. Sounds more like you're picking and choosing when you don't want parents around. And it's usually going to be because you all are doing something wrong that you don't want us around. But when it benefits you, you expect us to be involved. As they like to call it, parents need to be involved. Like we don't have a job or our own life going on when our children are in school. So they claim this is so they can help them figure out who they're becoming, which I think children will figure it out eventually anyway. So the classroom is a place where they learn to formulate arguments. No, it's not. But back them up, write and rewrite, think through problems, make mistakes, and try again. America's like the main place that does not want you to have a different opinion. You're not a kid formulating arguments. You're going to be sent to the principal's office for like disagreeing with your teacher. And I mean, that's literally what they were just saying in the article, is parents coming in, fighting about their children being learned about race and gender and all these different things. And there's a lot of censoring. My point is there's a lot of censoring going on around the American public school system. So to try to pretend that all this independence and freedom is happening behind closed doors is a joke. So it says it's what poet Tom Wayman called a microcosm of human experience. It's assembled for you to query and examine and ponder. I think that's what the parents think they're doing, is the parents are querying, examining, and pondering over what's happening inside the schools when they're not there. So the distinction between home and school exists to help teenagers think for themselves. Yet some students are not getting the gift of experiencing the separation. I thought that didn't happen in college. Like, why are you thinking for yourself as a teen? That's interesting. Like, maybe that thinking for yourself encourages talking back too much. Like, I don't know if that's something I would be encouraging until you leave my house. And you can think for yourself all you want. A few months ago, one of my students sneakily took a picture of a spelling quiz and sent it to his mother. 2 minutes later, students were still taking the quiz. I received an email from her asking why I had given it and if he could instead take it the next day so he can review more. The student hasn't prepared for the quiz and was understandably anxious. He'd also been trained that his mom would take care of it for him. But as soon as she took over, the opportunity for him to work through his frustration was gone. If he had experienced the natural consequence of being unprepared, chances are he would have studied for the next time. The lesson available to him could have been greater than studying for one quiz. He didn't learn it. Educators don't mind when parents contact us with questions. I think students also have been trained to not trust schools. And so I know there's a lot of things, including what parents have posted online, of assignments that were just like awful, like completely horrible. And it's like, why are they teaching this in the classroom? So it kind of goes both ways. And it basically goes back to that lack of trust between the school system and parents. Um, and I think the public as a whole should be concerned because these are children that's going to grow up and we're going to have to deal with them, like encounter them and interact with them and engage with them. And we should care what they're learning, whether you have children or not. You should care what they're learning in schools and how they're being treated. So educators don't mind when parents contact us with questions. Uh, we want good communication with families, and we hope our students share what they are doing in school. But the increased parental surveillance has blurred the boundaries between home and school so much that students are not developing into independent thinkers. There's nothing about American public schools that wants you to independently think at all. They want you to shut up and do your job and be in your cubicle for 8 hours a day. Nothing, absolutely nothing, nothing about America screams freedom of speech and independent thinking. Like, no, absolutely not. Absolutely not. I always have to like fight with my kids' teachers because they'll be like, "Oh, they're playing by themselves," and da, da, da. And I'm just like, maybe they're introverts. They just like being by themselves. Like these schools are designed to make everyone a carbon copy of each other and ship us out to all these different companies and factories or whatever and just go to work for like the rest of our lives. Like that's and don't ask any questions or you'll be fired. So students whose Chromebooks are monitored by their parents are also not as invested in their work as they could be. They may be less likely to play Minecraft in class, which my 5-year-olds are obsessed with, but they're also less likely to let their thoughts wander when they brainstorm any draft because they know their parents are watching them. The classroom is so important that even during lockdown, when we were remote, teachers tried to duplicate the physical space. Students played games in the Zoom chat, shared their screens to show presentations they created, and led discussions. Yet some parents still violated the sanctity of the classroom by surveilling their kids. Of course, you're going to surveil them. They're in the home with the parents. One day during that time, a mother of one of my students sent me an email. The subject line in all caps read, "I can hear everything and I don't like it." Yikes. We were discussing Romeo and Juliet. Her email quoted things students had shared about whether they believe in love at first sight and if they think love lasts forever. It was the liveliest discussion they'd had all year. With everyone stuck at home and given the increased mental health concerns during the pandemic, I was glad my students were eager to talk about relationships and human connections in the cyber world we'd created together. I never fully understood why the parent didn't like what she heard. It didn't matter. Our classroom wasn't for her. You're not going to separate the child from the parent as much as people try. It's not going to happen. You should want to know why the parent had an issue. It doesn't mean you're going to change everything for every parent, but it should matter. It does matter because the classroom is for all of us because that child's coming out and to live in the world with the rest of us. So that's a stupid statement. It's a silly statement. There's really no other way to put around it. It's an ignorant statement. And it just goes to show once more of how schools are having this power struggle or tug of war with parents and acting like, oh, it's just between you and your kid and me. And it's not That's not the case. Like, that's not how that works until they're 18. Because at 18, you basically lose all rights as a parent to your child, which is ridiculous unless they need car insurance. And then now they're charging you because it's a quote unquote household policy. But, whenever your child gets in trouble, they're breaking their neck fighting the parents. But for the most part, it's like, oh, your child's 18. You can't call to ask for things now because he's an adult. You can't do this because he's an adult. But when they're under 18, you are still held liable. So to act like we're not tethered to our children, no matter where they are, is disingenuous. It's a lie. Because anywhere your child goes, whatever they're doing, parents are held responsible for it. So her son barely spoke in class after that. I tried to encourage him, but his mother was right there with us, having scolded both teacher and student. Lockdown gave parents a front row seat to our virtual classes and made it easy for them to monitor the kids. Even though we've been back in person for several years, they haven't left. Yeah, because these parents probably saw something they didn't like, so they're just hanging around. This past semester, another student violated the cell phone policy by FaceTiming with her mother in our classroom minutes after receiving a grade she didn't like on a paper. I was about to conference with each student. Since the mother had already talked with her daughter, this student, like the one who had taken a photo of the spelling quiz, refused to talk with me about it. It's almost like they're realizing, like, our parents are our attorneys. Like, I want my attorney. I'm not talking to you until my mom gets here or my dad. So the mother told her daughter to tell me to call her immediately, even though she knew we were in the middle of class. After school that day, I called the parent on her phone from my phone to talk about her daughter who had been FaceTiming on her phone in class with her mother, whom I was now talking with, and who had told her daughter on the phone to tell me to phone her during class. It sounds like a version of Who's On First, a colleague joked. When I tried to explain what had happened, who is on first, I asked, our students or their parents? This is not hard to understand. So the daughter called her mom because I guess she wasn't happy with her grade or something along those lines. They said, what happened to her? She got a bad grade. Yeah. So she got a grade she didn't agree with. She called her mother, and her mother wants to talk to the teacher about this grade. I don't understand what the problem is here. And the problem is they want to eliminate parents. They want to cut parents out of the equation until they want to blame us for something that the child has done. So they don't want to take any accountability on their end. I mean, literally all you have to do is talk to the parent and explain why the child got the grade they got. It's just not that big of a deal. So I made no headway with this mother. I told her we have a cell phone policy. So she's talking about a cell phone. And the original issue is not being even being addressed. So power struggle is right here. Instead of addressing why this girl called her mom and was that upset that she had to call her mom about that, that's what you should be addressing first. That's what the student's upset about. That's what the mother is now upset about. Do some customer service. Let's go back to school and learn that. Deal with that issue first, and then address the cell phone policy issue if there is one. So the teacher is steadily having a power struggle moment, and they're telling the parent they have a cell phone policy. The school has a cell phone policy, and explain that phones take away from our classroom community. Community, she asked. Then before I could answer, told me it was perfectly fine for her to be in contact with her daughter throughout the day because she needs me. And people have to remember, like, we gave birth to these human beings. We made sure they stayed alive to get to school to begin with. Every single day and night, we are bathing them, feeding them, making sure they have a roof over their head, making sure their homework's done. And schools increasingly seem they want parents to do way more than I saw my parents doing with me and than I know my mom and dad's parents did with them, and so on and so forth. Nowadays, they increasingly want parents to be taking on more and more of what the school should be doing. But then when parents want to monitor their children, when parents do want to become involved, when we really do want to get involved because something has gone wrong at the school specifically, but like if we just want to get involved, but usually it is because something has gone wrong. Now the school is like, oh, let's put a wall up. And this is literally almost verbatim what I was going through. So it's so interesting. This article just kind of popped up on my feed because this is so resonating with me right now, because it's just like, they want you to come in, and like this one teacher, one of my son's teacher actually wanted me to volunteer for the class. And in classes, she said, my son is behind in. So I'm looking at her like she's crazy. Like, you don't want me to come in and observe my son in his classroom so I can see why he is having some of those negative behaviors that neither one of us want him to be having. And I was trying to figure out why he was doing this. Was he being bullied? Was he upset? Like, did something happen with the teacher? Like, what's happening here? So as a mother, I am concerned. I have been trained since he was born to answer to his cries. And when he's uncomfortable and having discomfort, like, I'm there to like protect him. I'm his mother. So if you call me and tell me my child's crying in the classroom or something, what do you think my first instinct is going to be? So now everyone's suddenly confused, like they don't know. But if I didn't respond, now I'm a bad mother. Make it make sense. So anyways, nothing makes sense when it comes to the American public school system or the American government or the American as a whole. So she was wanting me to, but she was talking about like, oh yeah, if you want to come volunteer, you can do that. So she basically wants me to come there and be like a servant when she's the public servant and she's getting paid. I'm not, but you want me to come to your job and help you do your job for no pay in a classroom where my son is, you say he's behind the class, he's behind in your class because you're not doing your job. And then he's also having behavioral issues, which is probably happening because you're not doing your job. And you don't want me to come in so we can resolve that issue. So what the F is going on? Like, what is really going on with the school system? I'm so over it. It's not even funny. And then you don't even have to add into all the child-free people who are coming in and feeling like they can like chime in on parenting. And it's like, are you kidding me right now? So yeah, that's what parents are dealing with. And this is a reactionary video because I'm reacting as I'm reading this article for the first time with you all, but I kind of had an idea where it was going to be going. So I knew I was going to read it. But yeah, you can't pick and choose when you want parents to be involved. You either have it, our children are safe and you've got this, or you want us involved. There's not going to be an in-between. Like, you either want me there a lot or you don't want me there at all because my child's safe in your care. So that's what needs to be happening, is make parents feel safe that where we're leaving our small people, our minis, that they're safe. If I don't feel like they're safe, or any parent doesn't feel like their child's safe in that environment, you will be hearing from us. It's really that simple. Capiche? It's just that simple. I do not explain to people, like, you don't have as much power over my child as you thought you did. That's really the problem, is everyone thinks they have more power over people's children than they do, and then they're entitled to have your own children and, control your own children. And that's just what's frustrating to me, is humans always wanting to control other humans, especially humans that don't have nothing to do with you. They're not your blood. You didn't give them life. You don't know them from Adam. You didn't take care of them up until today. You don't take care of them now. You don't know them, but you want all this access, all this power to this human being that you're not entitled to have any power over. Like, you're a teacher, you're there to do a job, and that's it. And you need to have some class management skills, because stuff that's happening in the classroom shouldn't be happening. Like, children crying for whatever reason, kids getting bullied. Like, that's the things they need to be worrying about. And you should, by all means, I would think as a teacher, like, if a child is having behavioral issues, I would gladly welcome a parent to come in and help, because who knows the child better than the parent? So what teachers are afraid of, because they can't do their jobs or don't want to do their jobs, even though they're getting paid to do these jobs, they're afraid the parents are going to come in and tell the teacher, you're doing something wrong. And then now they're going to have to change something, God forbid. So teachers and parents used to partner together in the development of children. Used to is the key word here. each of us with a vital and valued role in our communities, now it often seems we are at cross purposes. It's not too, yep, and that's exactly what I've been saying the whole time. So it's not too late. We can still collaborate on a unified vision with healthy boundaries designed for kids to grow into independent thinkers. Together, we can restore the classroom to the sacred place it should be, the microcosm of human experience. I don't know who Wayman is, but this person keeps referring to them, and I'm like, no, nobody's agreed with Wayman. We don't know who he even is to be saying that what he's saying is what we're seeing school to be for. And this microcosm of human experience, I've literally never heard of that before. I'm seeing it as a place that's not sacred, a place where my child is safe, where they go to learn what they are, all the things they need to know to become a successful, vibrant, polite, healthy adult. So Wayman wrote about a symbol for all students to query and examine and ponder, whatever. Some parents are very supportive of the classroom environment and don't want their children on phones when they are in class. A few parents have told me they are old school, that they don't want contact with their kids during the day, not only because of phones, but also so they can get a break from each other. Kids at school, parents at work, until later when they see each other and can share about their day, which, of course, some parents say that it's like, oh, you're now a bad parent because you want to get a break from your child. There's also a parent-led movement pushing for cell phone bans in schools. If we don't all work together, our students won't be prepared for the adult world. Yeah, that's the ultimate goal there, is to prepare them adequately and properly prepare these small children to go on to be amazing adults. Like, that's really not that difficult, but common sense is not common. Intelligence has gone out the window. So this person, or they'll reshape it into the surveillance state they are getting used to, where they won't know what it feels like to take risk or be imaginative or spontaneous because their whole lives have become a recorded live stream, and education will just get stranger. But everyone's monitored. Like, we're monitored by the police. We're monitored by the CCTVs everywhere. We're all just monitored like crazy. So why shouldn't they start in school so kids can be used to it by the time they become adults? Because when they become adults, it's not like, okay, now we're turning off the cameras. That's when the cameras get turned on. So I don't know how any of that will stop imagination or what, or taking risk, etc. But the funny thing is, I feel like schools already stifle children from doing those things. They're always talking about like how they all have to sit still and they can't play. They shortened recess, like they can't take a nap where they dream and have rest so they can wake up and continue learning and not be tired. It's not really a conducive environment for anything that this teacher that's speaking in this article is claiming that schools are. It's just not the schools I've been to over 20 years. And we've been to a lot. We're a military family. So what do you all think about parents having just free reign of their children while they're in their school via their cell phones, devices, which could include laptops, probably tablets, etc.? Do you think that you agree with parents wanting to have this access to their kids throughout the day, or do you think they shouldn't have this access to the kids? And I have to say, obviously everything in moderation. Like, I do think parents should have some access, but I do think you don't want it to be so much that it's disruptive to the child's school day, to the children learning. But I think that there needs to be some common sense that's used, where if a parent does have a concern because their child sent them a picture of a bad grade or whatever, that we just need to discuss that. And teachers are trying to be like police people, where they really don't want to be on camera, but you're a public servant, so it's par for the course. Like, it's just something that could happen. You're at work. I know when I worked for the government, they let us know, like, these computers are government property, so we didn't have privacy. They could scan our computer at any time. They could walk in and check on us while we're at work. Just like anybody's job, the bosses can micromanage and look around at you, and we're grown ass people. And I just don't know why teachers or police officers or certain people like that just think they have all this entitlement to this privacy that is not that it shouldn't be there. You're there to serve the public. So what is so private about this? A school should be, parents should be able to walk past the classroom and just kind of like look in and see how their kids doing. Police, it's like basically if you're doing your job, you wouldn't feel threatened about cameras being involved. Period. When I was in the military, I was always being watched by the federal government because it's the military. I did not feel threatened because I was doing my job. So let me know what you all think about this story. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye.